Season 1, Episode 8. This is our last episode of the season, Lexi.
Oh my gosh.
I know, it's so crazy. It's been such an awesome ride, you know?
It has. I know, and I'm so excited we get to end it with Ellie.
Ugh, right?
What can't that woman do?
Yeah, you beat me to it, right? What hasn't she done? What can't she do?
Seriously.
Yeah.
I mean, her story she's funny and she just makes you laugh the whole time, even though she's telling, about her lowest moments. You're still laughing your ass off the whole time.
Absolutely. Absolutely, totally. And we're just so appreciative to her because she's been like this guiding light of a person when we were creating this podcast,
Yeah.
And she believed in us when we didn't even believe in ourselves. And she's just like an amazing human. So we are so stoked for you guys to hear Ellie just talk. We could just listen to her talk all day, but
I wish she's too busy off saving the world.
That's so true. Well, thank you guys so much for listening to, this season. We're so appreciative of your support. As always, please stick around for our epilepsy fave of the week. And we also really want to thank our sponsors, Neuralis and SK Life Science. Thank you for taking a chance on us and believing in us, just like Ellie did. And we also, if anyone, wants to help support us to make season 2 happen, there's a link on our webpage and also on the podcast page. Our webpage is whatthefpodcast.com. No pressure to give us anything, but if you feel so inclined, we would appreciate that too. Okay, here we go. Last episode, Eli Corbett. Hi, everyone, and welcome to What the F. We are here with Eli Corbett, who is a badass attorney and also a board member of the Epilepsy Foundation of America. Ellie, hi. Thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah.
I'm so excited to be here. I remember you talking about this as a concept, and I'm just so excited to see it come to fruition.
Oh,
so,
thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, we're pumped too. I know, we're like... Every day we're like, this is a real thing we're doing.
Yeah, we're like, this is what we're doing for our job. Holy crap. This is real.
You are legit. You are legit.
So I think I just want to start off by introducing you by telling the story of how we were introduced. And it was by a mutual friend of ours, Parth, who is one of the co-founders of Eyes, which is just a company that you should look into. They did not ask me to say that. I'm just going to drop that in there. And I was talking to him and I was telling him that in the very beginning of my epilepsy journey, like I was so frustrated. And even at the time, I had been diagnosed like for, 3 years at that point. So I went and Googled like people who are successful with epilepsy. And like, I just, it was kind of like a fruitless search because I wasn't trying to find celebrities. I was just trying to find anyone. And I said, I just don't know anyone who's been like successful in the professional world. And it just makes me feel hopeless. And he said, I know who you need to talk to. You need to talk to Eli Corbett. And that is how we connected. And I am so grateful that he did that because then we had a conversation. You told me a lot about, everything from your journey to obstacles you faced to amazing positions you've held. And I was just hoping, we could dive in to all that today.
Yeah. No, I mean, something you said, Landis, is that you were looking for people that were successful that have epilepsy. And I think that the truth at the end of the day is there are a lot of successful people that have epilepsy. It's just whether or not they have courage to talk about it.
Totally. Yeah.
And not their fault.
Right. Because it's not like you expect someone to go on LinkedIn and be like, I have epilepsy, post. Right. So it's like a tricky way. That's a great point. Like there's probably so many people that I've met and I didn't even know it. And it's just, it's kind of like you said, it's not their fault for not sharing it, but it's also like, help us. We need inspiration. We need you. We need you to see our little lights for us,
Yeah. There's, I've had experiences since I've come out and started talking more openly about my epilepsy where people have in confidence shared with me either themselves or their spouse.
Oh, wow.
Or, I had an instance on the train to New York recently where I was talking to the person across from me and she was telling me how her son, who is also a lawyer, has epilepsy, but no one knows about it, including her friends that she was traveling with on the train. So she was whispering to me like, oh, my son has epilepsy, but none of my girlfriends know that. And these are women that have been friends for, 25 years. So it is something that obviously the stigma is there. It's real. And I'm here. And I know you guys are here to do whatever we can to erase that and flip the script.
Yeah, absolutely. And then like, as soon as you're telling the story, I was like, God, I just want to talk to her and her son and be like, and I just want to know why, because there's a million different reasons why that it's a secret, and I'm just like, what's holding you back? What's making you want to keep this a secret?
I gave her a business card and I said, please reach out to me. We can do an event together, something. I haven't heard from her yet, but I'm going to hold out hope, and I'll keep doing that every time I have the chance to share my story, and hopefully other people will feel more comfortable showing their colors too. And, coming out in their purple.
Yeah.
It is amazing how many people come out of the woodwork. Once you mention, drop even a little bit of information, then all of a sudden someone in the room will open up and they'll latch on to you for the rest of the evening, and they'll be like, I've never told anyone all of this. And, you just see what a huge impact it makes even to share your story just one time.
Totally.
Because sadly, most people, tend to keep it a secret.
Yep. And other things too, recently at my company, we started a neurodiversity ERG to support colleagues that have family members or themselves are dealing with some neurodiverse issue.
Wow,
and
that's amazing.
It has, I'm lucky enough to be the executive sponsor of it, but I can't claim to have founded it. A couple of really brilliant people on the team came up with this idea and brought it to me. And I was like, yes, please let me be involved. What can I do? But it's not just epilepsy, right? There's a lot of invisible challenges that people are dealing with on a daily basis. And
Absolutely.
They don't want to share in a professional setting because they don't want people to think they're incompetent. Or that they can't handle stress. And we all know stress is a great trigger for a seizure. And it has been something that I've had to navigate my whole professional life. And I know you both have as well. Like, it's not something that we can necessarily hide, although trust me, I've tried. And it didn't turn out so well for me.
Tell us about that, about when you tried to hide it before, you were passing out business cards to moms on trains being like, let's do something, before those days. What did it look like when you are trying to hide your epilepsy?
Yeah. So I went through high school without anyone knowing I had epilepsy. It was just,
Me too. I told only my close friends, and I said, okay, all the teachers, you keep this a secret.
Yeah,
and it wasn't until college when I had a grand mal and I finally was like, okay, I guess I have to tell more people.
That's exactly what happened to me. It was, I don't know. I don't know if this is your story, but when I was in college, I had a seizure because I thought I didn't need the medication and I wanted to be a normal college student, go to parties and whatever. And I had a seizure. Of course.
I feel like that's a very common epilepsy college experience. I from someone who didn't have it in college. So I'm just speaking from looking in, but I've heard that a lot where people in college, I think it's it makes sense given the age, right? Because your age is I'm going to do whatever I want, and you get it.
Screw these meds that make me feel horrible. I'm going to go off and try to, fit in like everyone else. No. Yeah. ER visit.
Just being a 19-year-old that remembers to do something at a certain time every day is a challenge.
Totally.
Oh my God, that horror story of just being at class and having, early things to be at and staying up late and alcohol is just,
And then being there in class and you're like, oh shit.
Yep.
Did I take my medicine? I can't remember. Should I take it again? What will that do?
Yeah.
Will I end up in the hospital? Will I not remember this whole day? I can't tell you how many times I've had that conversation with myself where you're trying to imagine the steps of what you did in the morning. You're like, did I touch the bottle or was that right tonight? I can't remember.
Yeah.
Exactly. Getting lost on campus after a seizure and just giant learning curve in itself.
Yeah. So I did what many kids do that are on our journey. I kept it to myself and I ended up going to law school and
that is so
I took a certain medication from 12 years old until 27 years old.
Oh, wow.
That heavy hitter medication just, if I was taking it, knocked out all of my seizure activity and had to keep getting on higher and higher doses because I was becoming somewhat resistant to it. but it also knocked out a lot of other things, like my cognitive abilities. And I just thought I wasn't that smart. I thought I had to study harder than anyone. I had to, not only study all semester, but I had to cram because I just didn't have retention. Like I couldn't retain information. I forget a lot of it. I hope that anyone that ever hires me for a job doesn't listen to this, but I forget a lot of what I learned in undergrad.
I think you have good references by now, but no, totally relate to that. I'd be like, I have a test and I have to, remember stuff that I was taught months ago. What? Like I can barely remember my teacher's name or where I sit in class. I can't remember this stuff.
And still to this day, I'm like, I almost majored in economics, but I don't remember a single thing. None of it. But I just thought it was my brain and my, I had an older brother and he would read something once and he would never have to read it again. I always would say like, oh, I'm not like him because I have to read it like 5,000 times. I can't read just once. And I went through law school doing just that. I went to law school at UCLA and I ended up getting a new doctor in California. And she said to me, like, you're a woman of a certain age, like we should really consider changing your medications to something that is healthier for you. And, of course, it ensues 5 years of seizures after that, trying to find the right thing. But when I did finally get on the right thing, I was stable as long as I managed my life. And, that's become the challenge that I'm constantly dealing with on a daily basis from then. But I also was just like super smart all of a sudden, like to the point where I couldn't sleep because my brain was so used to a slow pace of processing that once that medication was gone, it was slowing everything down. It was like my thoughts were racing. And I just felt I had all these ideas and all these thoughts. And I thought, going through law school, I'll never be a litigator. I won't be able to think on my feet. Like I can't do an oral argument. I would never be able to respond in the moment. But after going on to this other medicine, I was like, I need to be a litigator immediately. I want to be a federal prosecutor. I want to be in the courtroom. I want to be in front of juries, just like on TV. And I did that. And I became a federal prosecutor. I worked at a law firm, and then I became a federal prosecutor at the U.S. Attorney's Office in D.C. And it was
big deal.
A tremendous,
no big deal.
Right place, right time. I managed to trick them into hiring me. But said nothing about my epilepsy and had a tremendous few years of trying cases. I had 36 trials in 2 years' time. And it turns out that there are limitations when you're an epileptic. And I found them.
I've heard this. Yes.
And I was in back-to-back trials, and I had gone to run on a treadmill at the gym because they say when you're stressed, you should exercise. But it turns out that on this particular medication that I'm still on today, and it treats me very well, I have running seizures. And that's what happened to me. I was in the middle of a trial, so it was the evening, and I was talking to a detective on the phone. I get off the phone with him, and I'm running, finishing up my run, and I remember nothing else. I started waking up in the ER. It was Valentine's Day. I just gotten divorced. It was awesome. Awesome. Yeah. The only thing missing in this equation was a cat. I hadn't yet gotten a cat, but that did come.
Oh my God.
If you had gotten a cat on Valentine's Day, I think that would have been, beforehand earlier in the day.
I should have planned that. But I ended up burning my face and injuring myself quite badly. I had to have a mistrial because it was a criminal violent crimes case that I was trying at the time. And I couldn't go back in front of the jury because they might feel bad for me and therefore, wouldn't be fair to the defendant that was on trial. A good friend ended up retrying the case for me, but my boss at the time gave me a big speech about, like, you should have told me this. I needed to know this. You live alone. And I was a little pissed off because I'm like, this is none of your business and you're not going to tell me what to do with my medical information. But at the same time, I had this realization of like, why aren't you telling people this? In that office where I was, if you don't finish a 4-year commitment, you get a naughty note in your file. that, or at least this used to be the practice.
Is
I don't
it
know.
literally called a naughty note?
I don't know what it's literally called, but that's what they would say it is. So it's basically like you're blacklisted from working there again.
Oh, wow.
Or another U.S. attorney's office. So it's kind of a big deal. So I send in my resume. I find another job. I finally realize I have limitations. It's heartbreaking, but I need to do something that I'm still going to be inspired by, but not kill myself.
Yeah.
And I ended up, finding a really amazing opportunity in another government agency and submitting my resignation letter. But I had this really moving, really life-changing moment for me because the U.S. attorney called me to his or her office, so just keep names out of it, and he or her, she or him, however I'm saying this, was like, I see that you're leaving and, it's short of 4 years and we have a process, but you note a medical issue in your resignation letter. And I said, yeah, I did. I have epilepsy. And I had a seizure and it ended up in a mistrial. And I've just sort of realized that I have some limitations, as heartbreaking as it is for me, because I love this job. And this person said to me, no naughty note. Don't worry about that. There's not going to be a naughty note in the file. Got it. Understood. Appreciate it. We're going to be so sad to lose you. We shake hands. I start to walk out of the office. And this is when the life-changing moment happened for me. The person reached ahead of me and shut the door and turned back around and faced me and said, can I give you a little bit of advice?
Oh,
and I said, sure.
Oh, God.
And this person said to me, do not tell anyone what you just told me, because you will never have interesting opportunities and it will constantly be held against you subconsciously.
Wow.
And I looked at them, very powerful person, head of, one of the biggest U.S. attorney's offices. And I said, thanks for that advice. And I walked out and I was just like, you know what? F you. I am going to tell everybody I have epilepsy. And then I definitely became the crazy woman at a happy hour where I would meet someone. I'd be like, hi, I'm Ellie. I have epilepsy. Do you know what epilepsy? Let me tell you what epilepsy is.
That's what we do. Oh my God. There are so many stories like this. And, all the, I hate to say normal people, all the healthy people out there are like, no, I can't believe that ever would happen. And then you keep hearing all these other stories, the more epileptics you meet. And it's like, this happens so often where just fucked up shit happens. And then people just, it's, outside influences saying, shh,
right.
Don't tell anyone.
And then
you keep this to yourself.
Think of how many people don't respond the way you did, Ellie. And they they say, bravo to you. I might have just caved and been like, okay, whatever. I guess I won't tell anyone. I guess that was a mistake, But
I've definitely done that in some aspects.
I'm so happy that you had that you already had that conviction in your heart and all it did was just solidify it. Just because of the progress and the changes you've made already, and then continue to make. So, and then I hope someone is hearing this, and it's like, oh, okay, we can, I don't know, not keep it a secret, which sounds so, that doesn't sound like a rally.
Shout it from the rooftops.
There we go.
That's just not an option.
What I should have said to him in that moment, or her, is what the F? Seriously?
Yes!
No, but I have to say, in keeping it real, of course, I've doubted it at different points in time. And there have been moments where I've had opportunities that didn't come my way. And I wondered if it was because of it. Mm-hmm. But 100%. At the end of the day, what I tell myself is if that had anything to do with that opportunity not working out, then I didn't want that opportunity anyways. It wasn't for me. And I've even recently, recruiters are constantly reaching out. It's people, lawyers like me. And I had recently a recruiter say to me, I noticed that you're involved in the Epilepsy Foundation. And I was like, yes. He said, well, why is that? And I said, well, if you check out my LinkedIn, it becomes clear really quickly, I have epilepsy. And he said, well, what does that mean? How do you do your job? I mean, it was just like,
oh my gosh.
Obviously, I have done a lot of things professionally, and it's not gotten in the way. I realize, though, saying that, I'm incredibly lucky to be relatively controlled. My tonic-clonic, or as they used to call them in the olden days, grand mal seizures, they are completely controlled. I've not had one since that seizure in 2011, I think. now.
Oh,
So
wow.
it's been a number of years, that fateful Valentine's Day. But I still deal with myoclonic seizures pretty regularly, but it's not always obvious to people. Even my husband is still like, are you having a moment? What's happening? And I don't know if this happens to you guys, but like too much stimulus after I wake up.
Oh, yeah.
Like, if you're ever traveling with someone that doesn't know your morning routine, and you like get up and they're like, and they may not even be talking that fast, but it sounds like they're like in fast forward, and you're like, could you please just like step away?
Yes.
And let me just be here with my coffee.
Yes.
Right.
Totally.
My brain needs to wake up.
The people in my building call me by a different name when I take my dog out in the morning. So when I take George out in the morning, because they're like, you are a completely different person. And I was like, yes, and I appreciate you respecting it. So they call me Candace. For the morning.
You have an alter ego.
They're like, hey Candace, and they like look away, and I'm like, thank you, appreciate it. Like we're not talking.
I love that so much.
Yeah, because it's respectful and funny.
Yeah, yeah, and they get it.
That's hilarious.
Yeah,
God.
Yeah, but that is like a lot of, you ask sort of at the top of this, how do you become successful with something like this? And I think it's sort of like staking my claim. And this is a struggle constantly, right? Like I've shared, there have been moments where I'm like, oh, maybe I shouldn't have been so transparent. But sort of staking my claim in the space, realizing that I have just as much to offer as the neurotypical person next to me. And also setting boundaries. Like, I don't know why I was like this many years old before I realized that I don't have to take meetings before 9:00. Like, I don't know why it took me that long. And I'm like, I'm the general counsel of a company. And just recently, my CEO was like, hey, why don't you just like block time in the morning? And I'm like, yeah, why didn't I do that? Why didn't I do that 5 years ago? I should have just done that. It's not that I can't work during that time. I just don't want people talking at me on Zoom. Like I need to get my thoughts together for the day. And so building those boundaries, I think, is super important. And realizing what your rights are. I mean, all these jobs, I worked in the federal government during all of the Obama years. So I was in the federal government in DC for those 8 years. And never once did I apply for a job and disclose that I had a Class A disability, which now, having been the chief of staff of a federal agency, I know would have kicked me right to the top of the applicant pool. But I never disclosed it.
Okay, so I'm just learning this now. I didn't know that either. So
epileptics here. If you're applying for federal jobs, disclose it. You go to the front of the list.
Class A? Yes. Okay. That's good to know. Like I didn't even, I know I've Googled the ADA and I'm like, okay, epilepsy's in there, for under the American Disabilities Act. So it qualifies, but I don't know your class. I mean, I don't even know what Class A means. I will have to Google that too. But it sounds good. So
it means that you get a preference, and there's other protections that are similar that don't have to do with health related disclosures, but veterans, for instance, that have served in the military, there is a special preference in the federal hiring process for them as well. So if there's only a few different types of disabilities that qualify you to get kicked to the top of the list, and epilepsy is one of them.
Go. Yes. Point.
And yes. If I would have done that, I might have had even better job. So that is the tip of the day for those folks listening that are interested in working in the federal government.
Just tell everyone.
Yeah.
Yes, tell your friends.
Yeah, absolutely. So you mentioned and I really appreciate you sharing too, that the boundaries thing about the 9 a.m. just learning that, which I can relate so hard to. I feel like I have so many conversations with my therapist. She's like, really? You didn't know that, honey? And I'm like, no, just still learning, But what are some other sort of I don't know, boundaries or ways to balance, or, you mentioned earlier managing, your life, which I feel like is what so many of us are trying to do is the management. At least in my experience, because I've only had it for 5 years, the management is just so much different than before epilepsy. And so what does that look like to you as someone who is big badass attorney in New York City?
I mean, it's looked different over time. I think that when I was younger, I tried to live up to everyone else's expectations. And I would put a lot of stress on myself, which just compounded everything. For instance, like sleep. I've had, since I was 12, I've had battles with sleep because I knew how important sleep was. And so because of that, I couldn't achieve it. Yeah. It was the self-fulfilling prophecy where you're like, I really need to sleep tonight. I really need to sleep tonight. I really need, and then you can't sleep. And then it's 2 a.m. and then it's 3 a.m. And you're like, oh my gosh, I have to be somewhere at 8 a.m. and I might have a seizure. And then you're just so stressed about it. What I have come to realize, and this was like a long journey for me, is that if I don't put that pressure on myself and I just say, okay, I'm a little wound up tonight. I've got some crazy stuff going on at work. My kids are being complete jerks. Like there's too much going on. I haven't worked out in months. I may not sleep tonight. I may just watch some Housewives of New Jersey, and eventually my brain will get tired and I'll go to sleep. And if that means if that means I need to sleep until 9:30 or 10 the next morning, then I'm just going to set expectations before I go to bed. I'm going to send a few emails and say, look, I have a lot going on. I wasn't able to sleep last night. I needed to get 8 hours of sleep. I say that from, I don't have a job that demands I be there early in the morning, but I have a disability that requires accommodation. And, anyone that has epilepsy has a disability that requires professional workplace accommodations, and we should make sure we get them.
Absolutely.
And sleep is one of them. And so I can't, as a lawyer growing up at the law firm, I was like, oh, I got to work all night on this document review and we got to prepare the filing. And I just pushed myself and had lots of seizures.
Yeah.
And once I stopped doing that and asserted my own rights in the workplace and also appreciated what my limitations were and are, because I think speaking to two epileptics, like, they're always changing, right? Like that's the thing about epilepsy.
Oh, right. Yeah.
It's not dissimilar from raising a child because you're like, oh, I figured them out. And then they just completely mess with you in a different way. Like epilepsy is very similar. Like you think you've got it under control and then your biochemistry changes or, who knows why.
Yeah.
You stop reacting to the medicine or something. Like things change. So you've always got to be super in touch with yourself. And also, like, listen to your instincts about it, which I don't know if you guys have ever done the thing where you're like, I'm not going to have a seizure right now. You're like, in your head, it's not coming out of your mouth, but you're like, I can totally control this.
Oh, yes.
Definitely.
That's like my everyday. Like, just please.
It was like,
not going to happen. Not going to happen. Not going to happen. Not going to happen.
Yep.
Yeah.
It was like that. And then it morphed into just kind of, here we go. I just had Nora. And once I finally accepted it, I was like, oh, yep. Okay. This is my day. But yeah, definitely. I mean, I would just constantly, it was, nope, not going to happen. Out of sight, out of mind. And then,
it's what's happening with you. And I think professionally, if other people understand that, one of the greatest gifts that has come to me by being open about my epilepsy professionally is, I shared with you about the neurodiversity, ERG at my work, but also it just has humanized me as a leader of a company in a way that I never imagined. Like, does it freak some people out? And have I had the weird conversation of like, do I put a belt in your mouth or whatever? Yeah, sure. That's totally happened. I'm like, please do not put a nasty ass belt in my mouth.
Oh my God.
That won't help
belts
things.
Away from me.
People's just, man. Yeah, that one really caught on for us, didn't it? Yeah, they do. But holy shit.
Right. It's just the answer.
But it does, like, it brings people see you as a human first. And not some scary ass lawyer sitting in the ivory tower telling them what to do, or like, it for me has made my leadership journey much more relatable. And people come to me and share their stories. And I really love that part about not just where I work now, but where I've worked before, that it opens me up in a way to be vulnerable that allows other people to feel comfortable to do the same thing.
That's pretty beautiful. That's just like, especially because I'm assuming these people that come up to you aren't necessarily people with epilepsy, but are just people with issues. And they feel like, oh, well, she opened up. I can open up. That seems like that's possibly why there's, even though you said you didn't start it, but maybe that was the catalyst for creating this neurodiverse group within your company. That's pretty amazing.
I don't want to take any credit from the people that started it, but
Right.
it did kind of happen that way because it was, someone that is experiencing, she's become a good friend, but she's experiencing a new neurodiverse condition for most of her life, but she's not told anyone about it because she didn't want them to judge her and think she wasn't capable of doing the job that she's in. And so she and I, built a bond, and over time, she became bold enough to start talking about it. And then she came up with the idea. So just seeing the inspiration, like such a gift to me personally, that I'm able to be part of that story for others. There are really, you mentioned famous people, like there are famous people that have epilepsy, but there's also like incredibly famous professional people, lawyers in particular, that have epilepsy that are not open about it.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And I struggle. Some of the other board members of Epilepsy Foundation, we've talked about this from time to time. And I'm not going to attribute a specific condition to this person, but there are many reports that Chief Justice Roberts has had seizures. He's never publicly acknowledged it. And I joke because he lives in my neighborhood. I joke with my husband that I'm going to put a little note in his mailbox and just be like, hey, Justice Roberts, I don't know if you have epilepsy or not, but if you would just talk about your experience, it would be so meaningful. And my husband's like, you are going to get immediately shot by the Secret Service. Not a good idea. We're not doing that.
Just go knock on his door and just say, hey, please, come over and chat with me for a bit. Yeah. This can be off the record.
It could help so much.
Yeah. Oh, I know. That's just probably one of the most frustrating things is just, not everyone feels comfortable talking about it. And that's why a lot of us feel so alone in one point of our diagnosis until you start to really open up about it. And then you meet everyone else. And then you're like, oh, this is actually a huge community. And then you realize it's because, people just aren't comfortable with it. And, it just takes a while.
Yeah.
It took me a long time to feel comfortable talking about it. And, like we mentioned earlier, high school, college, and it took a good 5 years to really feel comfortable talking about it. And if someone had told me 11 years ago that I'd be on a podcast talking about it when I was telling everyone to shut the hell up and keep it a secret and literally just do not tell a single soul, I would have laughed. I would have been like, oh, yeah, right. But
you're doing it.
Yeah. It's
you're doing it.
Yeah, it just makes it 10 times easier to live with it if you can just talk openly about it. And, meeting people like you two just changes the whole entire ball game.
Yeah, I think about how we come together with the Epilepsy Foundation. And every time I get together with the board or an event, like I saw Landis recently in Nashville, I cry the whole time. It's a good thing. It's heartwarming. It's a family I never knew I had or that I needed. It has filled an empty space in my heart. And I'm just like, damn it, Ellie, why didn't you do this sooner?
Yes.
Yeah, totally.
Exactly. That's 100% how I feel.
And I think too, just because so much of it can be the condition itself can be very isolating. So then when you find a community of people that are also feeling isolated, that isolation starts to melt away. Right. And it's
it's hard to meet people when you're trapped in your room being post-ictal recovering from a seizure.
Yes.
Yeah.
And you're too tired to get out of bed or to have any social interaction. And you're just like, oh, I'll do it another time.
I would get people were like, why don't you join a meetup group? I'm like, because I can't move. I'm having 4 seizures a week. What, through the Chicago chapter of the Epilepsy Foundation, I found a virtual support group, and it was just nice to connect with people. Oh, okay. There's other people too who can't get up and go somewhere, but we can all connect over Zoom or something. And that was really it's just so helpful.
That's what it took for me. It was finally meeting other epileptics. And then they got me comfortable with it. And then I finally got more comfortable talking about it. And that was kind of the thing that really pushed me into this community was, okay, these people are normal. These people are amazing humans. We're all going through the same stuff. And, as cheesy as it sounds, they are what catapulted me into feeling comfortable with my diagnosis.
Yeah, no, that's wonderful. That's the part of it that, I wanted to give back. And that's how I eventually came to be involved with the foundation. But I get so much more than I give. Like I give all my time I can and money. But it is really just the relationships and the difference that you see in people when they become involved, or, a parent that has a child and they're like, will my child ever be able to have a job? Will they ever be able to live on their own? And those are really scary questions that all of us have lived through. And I actually was telling, this will change the tone a little bit, but I was telling a colleague about like my funniest epilepsy story. You guys want to hear it?
Oh, give it to us. Yes. We love sharing these.
So I was, I'm sure you guys have better ones, but for me, this is like epically, I always remember it and laugh. Of course, I cried a lot when it happened. It wasn't funny in the moment, but I was going to law school at UCLA and I was renting a room in a townhouse that was like on the outskirts of Beverly Hills. It was not fancy. It was in the zip code, but it was not fancy. And I had found it on Craigslist, and I was living with two women, and one of them was a party planner. Like she planned these like really extravagant LA parties, and I was like not a party planner. I was wearing like corduroys and like clogs and I was so dorky, like not West Coast at all. And
comfiest clothes I can find.
Yeah. I was just not cool, and I was studying gazillion hours because I couldn't retain anything. And she was always bringing people home from the bars, and she liked to not wear a lot of clothes, a lot of times no clothes, walking through the apartment. And I was just like, this woman is crazy. And online dating was new because this was like back in 2005 maybe. And she was online dating and bringing random guys over all the time. And I'm like, oh my gosh, we're going to get murdered. Like, this is really scary. And one night she had a guy over very late, super loud. I wasn't getting sleep. I had exams coming up. I get up the next morning. I get in the shower. And the next thing I know, I wake up in the bathroom and I am naked. No. She's naked. The other roommate is naked. No. And they're holding me down with a pillow.
What?
And I think they're trying, I don't know what's going on, but I am like, what? Have they drugged me? And they're like, you had a seizure. And I'm like, no, I didn't. Of course I'm in denial about it. And they're like holding me down because apparently I had a seizure and fallen out of the shower, and they heard me hit the ground, and they popped out of bed, and they came in and they were trying to put a pillow under my head so that I wouldn't, hurt myself. But I was like, they're assaulting me. Oh. And then these firemen walk in, and I'm like, what am I in some kind of adult film situation? Like, I don't know what is happening. This is out of control. And I was super mad. But that was probably one of them. Because, you're so disoriented. Nothing makes sense. And I tend to be, that. I'm very combative when I'm postictal. I don't know about you guys, but I'm always assuming somebody is trying to assault me.
Yeah. I mean, I've had friends who've gotten arrested several times just when they're postictal.
Yeah. I know someone who, goes into denial and runs away, tries to run. And you have to no, you're not. You have to understand they don't understand what you're saying. They don't hear you. Right.
Right.
But I'm not going to lie. Her running around the yard was not unfunny after a seizure.
Right. Afterwards, you're like, that was pretty hilarious. Right. I kind of wish I would have videoed it, but
yeah, if you're with the right people, you can laugh about it.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Oh, God. Yeah, I've done the shower thing, too. No worries. Except my dad dragged me out of it butt naked. So.
Oh, man. Yeah.
Bonding moments. I'd never have had hot firefighters walk in after a seizure.
Well, were they hot?
We didn't top me there.
We'll just pretend they were. If you thought they were in an adult film, we're just going to go.
In my mind, I just see the suspenders, the actual fire hair, and I'm like, what is happening? But I have multiple times accused paramedics of trying to assault me. I don't know why, but that's what happened.
Yeah. It's a weird reaction. Just not weird in the sense that you have it, but I mean, it's just a weird common one that I feel like there's there's a fight response. There's a denial response. There's all, that I hear a lot. Like, and it's like, I need
Yeah.
to look into why that happens, because that's just kind of,
I know. Mine was often like, nope, I don't have time for this. I gotta go. I've got something. And
Yeah.
I was always worried about what did I have going on that day. I hate missing stuff. I hate being late. And I'm like, no, I have to go. And people would be like, chill, go to bed, take an Ativan.
I've had shit to do.
Yeah.
No, I would go from fight mode to, oh my God, my life is over, sobbing mode. That was my routine. I would be like, oh, I'm never getting my driver's license back again. My life is over. Like, it went every time. And the paramedics would be like, you're missing one day of class. You're going to be fine. I'm like, no, it's over. I will never graduate law school. Like, it was always.
If only it was just one day.
Yeah. That's how my seizures end, with crying, like just like, unabashed, just weeping. And I'm like, well, I guess I had a seizure because I'm crying for no fucking reason. Like, and there's just like, but it is like, then like it's just like, the day is over. I can't take my dog for a walk. Oh my God. Like, all the small things become very big, like in those moments.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The best is when your family asks you why you're crying and you have no good reason. You're just like, I just can't contain it. I just like need to cry right now. And then you start laughing and you're just like, what the hell is going on with my body right now?
Yeah.
I cannot separate my emotions. They're just all coming out
like
right now.
I mean, this sounds very familiar to like, similar to me too. Like, as I'm living through it and thinking back on those times, like, oh, it's exactly like how you are just generally after you have a baby. Like, you're totally crazy. You make no sense. Everything is the end of the world. Like, there's a lot of parallels.
Really? Oh,
it really is. And I'll add to that, as an epileptic, after you have a baby, you're like, and if I get too emotional, I might have a seizure. It's like another thing that you have to be worried about. Another fun fact to those listening, or to either of you, if you
please bring it on,
wish to start a family someday, is that your spouse or your partner actually can get sick leave under FMLA to be home with you post having a child. So I didn't know it the first time around, but the second time around, I had a new neurologist, and he was like, you shouldn't be alone with the baby for the first 8 weeks. I will write your husband a note so that he can be home and monitor you. And I did that. It was so much better.
Okay, so
I had no idea.
I hope everyone took notes or get a pen out. Your partner can get FMLA.
Yeah, here's incentive.
Oh my, yeah.
Yes.
To be with us.
Yeah. You get a paternity leave.
Oh my God.
That's fantastic. That's, I did not know that. Thank you for sharing that. And that makes sense.
Yeah.
Because like your doctor said, like, I don't know, for me anyway, I should definitely not be alone with baby. Like, at this point, with my seizure frequency.
Yeah.
That's awesome to know.
Yeah, there are ways. And even, it doesn't have to be your partner, right? Like, say if it's a close family member, if you have a child without a partner.
This gets better and better.
Absolutely.
Yeah, wow.
Legal rights, my friend.
Oh my gosh. When we have kids, we're calling you and we're going to say, what can we get out of this?
Oh my gosh, please. All the mamas call me. I've been down that road.
The next time we have you on, I think we'll just have callers call in with legal questions about epilepsy. Ellie, help me. She's like, Ellie's legal helpline. Yes.
The funny thing about all of the things I've learned about my legal rights were like years after I should have asserted them for myself. Yeah, why didn't I know about that? Why didn't I pursue that protection for myself? It was when I was, realizing these things for other people, or in that instance, having neurologists be like, you realize that your husband can take care of you, right? Like, oh, he can? How can we make that happen? He's like, I'm going to write a note and he's going to bring it to work. And I'm like, wow.
These magical notes you speak of. Get me one.
My favorite thing was getting out of jury duty for the rest of my life. And I kept getting just like kind of temporary doctor's notes because you got to show up early. And I'd be like, I can't. I have seizures first thing in the morning when I wake up. And finally he goes, I can just write you a note excusing you from those because you can't get up that early. And I was like, really?
Oh my God, mind blown. I mean, I will attempt to perform my civic duty if I'm in a good health place for it. But if I'm not, that should be it's an accommodation that we are entitled to.
Yeah, I was like, that's a thing? What? You can do that? He's like, yeah, I don't want you showing up this early and having, a seizure in court. And I'm like, okay, yeah, that sounds nice. Yeah, let's do that.
Yes. Good for you.
So, there we go.
Signed off.
Mm-hmm.
Man.
Yeah.
Well, Ellie, we want to thank you so much for being here and so much for just not only sharing your story, but giving us great advice too.
Yeah, thanks for
I feel like I was like taking notes. I'm like, okay, accepting that you might not sleep and then just accommodating the next day. Like, I love this. Thank you so much. We're so appreciative to have you on.
Thank you for having me. I'm so glad to be here. I'm so glad to spend time with both of you. And honestly, I'm like over 20 years now of having epilepsy. So maybe I'm picking up a new fact or two each year of learning. I'm happy to be the wise old owl and share some of it.
Well, Ellie, thank you again.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, thanks so much. And I hope you guys have a great rest of your week.
You too.
You too.
Right.
Bye-bye.
All right, talk soon.
Okay, here's our epilepsy fave of the week. It is a company called Temporal Tees, and they have very funny shit about epilepsy, from shirts to stickers to mugs to glasses. Absolutely check them out. They have an Etsy page, and if you just type in Temporal Tees, you'll find them. They're also on Instagram. Highly recommend their stuff. And as always, our epilepsy faves do not pay to be featured on here. We just really want to uplift anyone who's doing anything who has epilepsy in the community. So if you want to be featured, just reach out to us via our website at whatthefpodcast.com. Okay, bye.